Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of dude, you gotta listen to this track. Listening to songs that honestly I just really need to listen to. I don't know how these two got picked back to back. We had Gris a little bit ago, which was black metal, but I kind of thought was doom, but it was a longer track, and of course we're looking at Ahab now, which is, I'm pretty sure, doom metal, and is a longer track. Today is a day of heavy, weighty metal epics, I suppose. Let's dive into the track Below the Sun from Ahab. Well, both the videos today are definitely about atmospheric metal nonetheless. The heavy reverb, that sonar-like sound, it even feels like light doesn't exist down here. By down here, I of course mean that this sounds like we're underwater. That kind of scared me a little bit. As usual, I gotta know the tempo on this. If we are to assume that this is the tempo, we're at 39 or 40 BPMs. This is so slow. That assumes that the guitar is playing eighth notes and not quarter notes, though. Because it would be about... yeah, about 80 if we took the guitar line as the tempo. And as usual with doom metal and with Ahab, time is a suggestion. And honestly, when you're playing at such a slow tempo, it's really difficult to have that precision, that temporal precision, and they just lean into it. beautiful little melody from the guitar. Love the cymbal work. Even the placement of the cymbals keeps things lively. Dang, what are there, like 5, 6 different cymbals being used in that pattern? Such a meaty bass kick and snare. Yeah, they favor the low end on both of those as far as production goes. So I'm just like moving back and forth, nodding my head, and I imagined like a whole crowd of just that at a concert. Do people mosh to do metal? It feels just a bit too slow for that. And there was one of those times the guitar came in a bit late. Again, time's a suggestion with them. So we have a choir in the background, but also this space. Oh, of course, the one time. So that last section made use of the guitars cutting out quite a bit and having this empty space. There's a lot more movement than I expected for Ahab. I think we only listened to 2 other tracks from them, but both of them were they were more about dragging energy than anything else. Sort of like this. It's really interesting to hear them have so much momentum for a large piece of this track. Even slower, by the way, we're at 31 BPM here. Oh, that slide at such a slow tempo. To hear all the micro movements of pitch. a little uplift here. We're being pulled out of those depths. Yeah. So we're bringing back that drum part I loved from earlier with a totally different guitar tone, or guitar melody. But one that feels like being pulled out of those low areas we had explored for such a long time. Also, depth is a terrible word. There is no need for a P, TH, and S sound to be next to each other. There is too much consonant stuff going on there. Alright. The overall sound that I get here, we kick it off with slow movement. We speed it up for quite some time. We were in that slow movement for a while too. I think it took us like 4 minutes until we hit the second section, which is where the drums came in that first time with that heavy cymbal idea, bringing up the tempo quite a bit, bringing in some guitar melody, really pushing the song forward for quite some time. I think it was 2-3 minutes. And then descending back into those depths that we explored at the beginning of the song, but even slower this time, shifting from about 40 BPMs to about 30 BPMs, which is just abysmally slow. That is just most most musicians would not try to play that slow because it's not a good time. Um, But Ahab, they just, whatever, man, we're going that slow, and they just do it, and it's. We'll touch on that in a second, I suppose. I want to stick on to a little bit of the atmosphere and storytelling here. And then from here, we kind of bring the energy back up, not quite as energetic as we were in that second section, but definitely more energy and momentum than we were in the 30 BPM section. And with a brand new guitar melody that modifies the feeling of the song. This track has a progression narratively as far as the atmosphere of each section that to me reads as weight and being stuck and maybe even giving up. And then a burst of momentum, energy, a puzzle piece clicks into place, and you're back on track. We got to figure this out. I've got a plan of action. Let's go for it. That fails though, and we succumb back to this lethargy, this depression, this giving up. Except this time it's worse. We thought we had it. Depression, energy direction, depression. But then we wrap up with redemption almost. It's a positive swing, it's an uplift. We've been pulled out of whatever depths we were in, but not for something victorious. There is some melancholy in that final moment of the track, the final section there, that final guitar melody. But it is positive, it is brighter. It's just not wholly focused on that. And it isn't, again, victory. The task we set out to do is not complete. But we've been relieved of this weight, is what I feel like that final section is supposed to be about. But again, it's not a victorious release. It's more of, I no longer have to worry about this, rather than I have accomplished it and can mark it off of my checklist. And that could be brought about in a lot of ways. Maybe it was a task the person didn't want to do, and it was just a big stress, a big weight on their shoulders. And, someone above them said, you know what? It's not your job anymore. And there's that release of the tension of the shoulders. But I kind of view it more along the lines of possibly that death has released them from this task. And along with the ideas of the depths of the song, it could be like drowning. I even mentioned at the beginning that between the heavy reverb and the radar sound, which I guess could also be a whale sound, I think this album was about Moby Dick, if I remember correctly. All this idea of drowning fits right in with those slower sections. And the final section of the song, I think, could be read as a release of the spirit and a release of the stresses and tasks of mortal life through death. And that juxtaposition of the bittersweetness of feeling that weight lifted off of you, but also because you are no longer alive. And I think that works really well within that context. I'm interested to see where the lyrics go on this one. Although if it is about Moby Dick, much like last time, there might be some nuances I just don't have the information to understand properly. Because last time it was about what a priest was saying to the sailor about something, I don't remember. And like I had no idea what any of that was, so the lyrics were just maybe the same thing will happen here. I don't know. Tempo. The song is slow. The thing about tempo, I bring this up every time we check out Doom, especially Funeral Doom, is that the slower you play, the harder it is to keep in time with everybody. It's why playing slow songs is a nightmare if you're in a setting where perfection is key. Maybe you're playing a slower classical track and the perfection is expected. It is really, really, really tough to get everybody in on that. Even just listen to this: three musicians, bass, guitar, drums, and yet there's still plenty of instances where there's a heavy emphasis on a downbeat and they're all out of sync with each other. The guitar's a hair bit late, the drums are a bit early, it makes the bass feel late even though they were actually on time. It's what makes finding the tempo so difficult about this, because when I hear two beats, I begin to internalize the distance between them and create a consistent pattern based on that. And I go over to my little app and I'm tapping the tempo out, and then everybody plays just a bit behind me, and it makes me question myself, did I rush that beat? Which is very possible. It's very easy to rush when you're talking about 40, 30 BPMs. So I'll tap out a few more beats and I'm like, I've got a pretty steady rhythm here. I'm on time with all of them. And then the whole band will speed up and they'll jump out like, whoa, was I dragging? No, the thing is that it's just very difficult to play consistently at this speed without a conductor, without a metronome. Even the idea that I'm second guessing if I'm rushing or dragging compared to what the band is playing showcases just how difficult it is. They don't care about any of it. It's one of the things that makes it work. It kind of takes that stress, that pressure off, because perfection isn't the end goal. And so if you are a little bit late, if you're a little bit early, whatever. And that allows them to utilize it to a strength, which is not something I've really talked about too much in the past. I have alluded that the looseness adds elements, especially in Funeral Doom, to the lethargy of the track. The song is so heavy, so weighty, that even the song itself refuses to abide to the rigidity of time. But I think it works really well in the context of this as well, since Ahab, at least in my limited knowledge of them, does a lot of watery imagery and stuff like that. Water has rhythms and flows, but it's also at least to a normal person, unpredictable. I'm sure scientists have been able to understand how the ocean moves based on like lunar stuff and all that. Like there's a whole, I'm sure, a whole science uh, behind it, whole knowledge set. But to us, we can watch the waves coming in and rolling out, crashing onto the shore and rolling out again. And there is a rhythm to that. And it can even create a feeling of being metronomic after three or four or five crests, but eventually it's going to find a new rhythm. And I think that's what's really cool in this is that it does feel a bit amorphous like that. It does have a watery feel that at any moment it could speed up or slow down just a hair bit more than what you were expecting. Everything else, though, is it all ties into the atmosphere. It's a very heavy, weighty song. There's a lot of instances of the guitar and bass just playing a chord, playing notes, and letting it hold out and ring and naturally fade out before you hit the next. And the drums are hitting notes just as sparsely with a snare crack, and then a bass hit, and then another snare crack. And it's just so slow and lethargic. That's a vast majority of this track is feeling the weight of the production, the weight of the speed, the lack of playing in a lot of this track. But there are two moments I want to focus on that kind of push. Oh, and the vocals too, just being so low that I don't even hear pronunciation of syllables at times. It's just just really low stuff. That was a terrible growl, by the way. I hope you all are laughing as hard as me. I don't know why I sounded like geez, what like Lurch with a sore throat. There were two really good points though in here. One is just the drumming in some of the more technical sections. I love the ideas, the symbol brightness that we saw, and even the symbol diversity. Like I said, I think there are like five or six symbols, just making sure that the timbre was never the same from hit to hit, having them placed throughout the sound sphere in different areas. It's a very contrasty drum pattern that works well at creating a point of just juxtaposition towards the homogeneity of sound that we hear throughout the rest of the track. It is a very focused song, not really contrasty at all. Everything works towards this one homogeneous idea, and then we have like these symbols all over the place for this one moment. And I think it's a neat little juxtaposition to what we get throughout a majority of the rest of the track. The other thing I really loved was the spaciousness. I thought this was interesting because even in the faster, more up-tempo section that we had, we'd have the guitar riff, and it'd play like 8 or 9 notes, and then there'd be like 2 or 3 beats of just silence where it's just drums and sometimes growls, maybe the bass holding out a note or something. And it's just this pocket of emptiness. And they did this over and over and over, this driving guitar riff and then the pocket of emptiness. And I thought that was interesting. I don't know what it represents, but it is something that stood out to me very prominently, and I'll definitely be looking for anything in the lyrics that might be able to tie into this thematically somehow. With that said, this track really only moves between two ideas. It takes 12 minutes to explore them as deeply and cohesively as they wanted to. So let's dive into some lyrics, see what's going on there. Alright, so unlike the earlier video we had where the lyrics were way too wild for me, this one is very straightforward. It is about a person lost to madness with only one focus, and that is, of course, to kill Moby Dick. We have lines like, I turn my body from the sun to follow the fading phantom into the deep. I really like that alliteration there. Follow fading phantom. the idea there. I shun the sun. I will descend into the waters and follow this whale. It says, your malice is my vengeance. This is a little bit of madness seeping in as he's allowing this hatred to take over, right? Is the whale malicious? Probably not. But he says, your malice is my vengeance. He assumes this whale has human feelings about him as if he's anything more than a little pest to this giant whale. He says, pull me into deep, my body drowned, but my hate is immortal. Darker and silent, deeper, darker, below the surface, below the sun, ghost of the sea, I am God's assassin. A lot of this gets repeated in the next stanza, but we do see one change. He says, my lifeless eyes, my tortured soul. A little bit of introspection there that almost feels like at a moment he could reel back and say, wait a second. This isn't what I need. This is going to end me. But of course, like I said, we repeat a lot of that stuff earlier about hate is immortal, going deeper into the water, I'm God's assassin, all this stuff. Yep, that's what this song's about. Kind of doesn't go in the direction I was expecting. It also is the beginning of this album. Yeah, it's track 1 on this album. So the ending that I felt from the music, I don't know. Maybe it's foreshadowing. Because if I remember correctly, Ahab, the captain of the ship who wants to kill Moby Dick, dies at the end, right? So while he's singing all this stuff about, this is my only task in life, I have to do this, I'm God's assassin, you're dead, well, I just punched, that hurt, I punched the microphone stand. As he's going on and on about all this, the music right after this point, so this is, okay, yeah. So this is a descent into madness, of allowing vengeance to consume you. Musically, this is really slow, dark, deep. This is descending into the depth of vengeance. Just after this, we get the little 1.5 minute to 2 minute guitar idea that ends the song. I don't remember vocals here. Maybe this is foreshadowing that he's not going to finish his goal. There is no victory at the end of this quest. There will be a release from this, though. The madness will escape him and he will be able to move on, but not in the way he's hoping. I don't know. Maybe that's not true. Maybe I'm just reading way too far into that. But that's my take on it. Everything fits really well here, though. Even the driving intensity in that second section is more of his madness taking over. It's consuming him. It's all he can think about. Puts him into a frenzy. And then drags him down into that darkness. It's a really great way of personifying this whole concept of just losing yourself to a single idea and allowing it to consume you and to infect its way into your every thought process and your every decision, showing both the manic side of it and the heavy weight and burden and darkness that it puts on one's soul. Those are my thoughts. Ahab's Below the Sun. Let me know what you thought of this track. If there was anything that stood out to you that maybe I didn't touch on, anything you'd like to expand upon of what I said, or maybe you just want to correct me on some stuff I was wrong about, put that stuff down in the comments alongside your general thoughts, perspectives, and opinions on this track. Above that, if you could, head into the description box. You'll find a link to Linktree, which takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all 3 of those. That wraps it up for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of, dude, you gotta listen to this. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.